Welcome to Late Night Riders. I'm Gretchen Foles, and I'm joined by Trevor.
Hello.
And on this episode, we talked to Nicole Hauseman, and I'm really excited about this one.
I think this episode is going to be a good one for our listeners. Just her explaining and how she started to where she is now, I think it's a very interesting journey that she shares with us.
This is a great one for high schoolers to find out like what it is to be an equestrian at college.
Oh, yeah.
And for business people, like she just started her own business and she's a mom. And so she talks about how to get your kids involved in riding at a very young age and get them invested.
It just shows, like, and she even tells us, like, pretty much, I mean, there's going to be a challenge when you're going through all these parts in your life, but you can still do it. You can still do what you want to do in the equestrian lifestyle and what you need to do outside of that as well. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, and she's a really incredible woman, so please enjoy. Today I'm joined with Nicole Hauseman, my grandmother Debbie, my mom Kristen, and Trevor. Hi guys.
Hi, Nicole.
So Nicole, tell us a little bit about when you first started riding.
So I started riding when I was 6. My mom's best friend, her daughter, had a pony that lived in their backyard, and I was doing ballet at the time, and all I wanted to do was ride horses. So my mom let me quit ballet and start riding, and so I started taking lessons in Evansville, Indiana.
Okay.
At an eventing barn, and I just fell in love. So my dad had always told me that if I could buy my first horse, that would be fine. So I saved every penny I ever got, and when I was 12, I bought my first horse for $3,100.
Oh my gosh!
So what types of jobs did you do to?
So I did anything from like helping my neighbors move and pack boxes, or taking care of their animals. I sold. That was like when TY Beanie Babies was a really big thing.
Yeah.
And so I sold all of my Beanie Babies on eBay.
You were devoted.
So, and then we got an allowance, for doing chores around the house. So I always saved everything I ever got. So, because like that was my goal, that I was going to buy a horse. And then I think that's when my parents realized that it was not the initial expense of a horse. It was all the upkeep that they had promised that they would pay for if I bought the horse. But then I spent every weekend at the barn riding and helping out and doing chores so that I could just be around more and getting more lessons.
So what was your first horse? What was this little?
She was an Oldenburg mare. She was so much fun, but I had her for 4 months, and then she got kicked out in the pasture and broke her leg. And so we ended up putting her down, and then my parents bought me my next horse. And she was a thoroughbred mare off the track. Oh, yeah, she was a thoroughbred mare, not off the track, but yeah. So, and then we moved to Pennsylvania when I was 14, and I still was doing eventing at the time, and we competed with that same thoroughbred mare up to training level eventing. And I thought that was the greatest thing ever, doing eventing. And then I started working. A Grand Prix rider came to the barn that I was at, and he didn't have a groom at the time, and so he told me if I would help him groom, that he would allow me to ride one of his horses, or he would give me lessons.
And what age was that?
I was 17 at that time.
Okay.
And so I was like, sure, free lessons, that sounds great, I can do whatever. And I felt my horse Passage for the first time, and I was sold on dressage forever.
For people like me who aren't really in the horse equine world, what does that mean?
So Passage is more like an elevated trot that is not in place. So an in place trot is piaffe. The Passage is the piaffe moving forward.
Okay.
It's very pretty. It's very looks very
Like
elegant.
Yeah.
Very elegant.
So that's when I really fell in love with dressage, when I was working with that Grand Prix rider. And then I went to college, and I continued riding there because I have my degree in equine studies. And then I rode in the Intercollegiate Dressage Association all 4 years in college. And then
You said that you were the captain of that team.
I was.
So what all goes into being the captain of a dressage team?
So it's running meetings. We have weekly meetings and weekly practices. And so just kind of organizing the lessons every week and making sure that everyone's showing up and that the people that are going to be on the shows for that month, are making sure they're getting there on time. And then once a year, your college has to host a show. Or once the show season. So then that was like being in charge, helping to be in charge of running the show and making sure all the tests are together and all the horses are ready to go.
So is this like all equine studies majors, or is it anyone?
Yeah, so anyone who was in our college could try out to be on the team. And then we had tryouts, and we had what we called like a club part of it, where we had people that still came to do lessons and learn and grow in your riding. And then we had the competition team. So like those were the people that were showing on a regular basis.
Okay. And then excuse me, I went to a very small school.
That's okay.
So was it like you had a barn on the campus and anyone could just bring their horses in, or did they have horses provided for students?
Yeah, so the competition, there are horses provided. So you do it in groups. So there's like a group A, and there's a first level horse, a high training horse, a low training horse, and an intro horse. And so there's group A, group B, group C most of the time, and there was normally like 5 to 6 teams that were all competing together. So normally each school brings 2 teams, an A team and a B team. And then your team draws a group of horses. So say you draw group A. So whatever horse is in that group, I have to ride that horse in a dressage test. And you have 10 minutes to warm the horse up and get to know it and then ride the test.
That's intense.
Yeah, pressure. Wow.
Yeah. So it was a lot of learning. When you train and you ride your own horse, it's very different than when you ride in the college setting, because you have to ride exactly what you have in that moment, because somebody that rode before you could have done something very different. Maybe the horse really liked them. Maybe they didn't like them. And then you may have to try to be like, it's okay, I'm not going to pull on your mouth,
Yeah.
So then you have to really ride what you have in those 10 minutes.
Lots of experience, doesn't it? With the different horses, the different riders.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're also an equine studies major. What did your classes look like?
So we had to do everything pretty much. We had to be in breeding management, and we had standardbred breeding at my college, and so we had to watch foals be born. And we had practicum, which is where you have to be there twice a week. And then one weekend every month, and you had to do stalls, and you had care horses that you were in charge of that horse just like it was your own, and you had exams on that horse, like how well they're presented. And then I had to take equine business classes. You had to take I had to take all the regular classes like English and math and all that kind of stuff. But I took equine massage therapy. And you had to take a driving class, and then you had you had a riding class each semester.
So did you get certified in anything while you were going through this? So
Delaware Valley University is a British Horse Society certified college, and so I don't think he's the director right now, but one of the instructors there, Angelo, is I believe is the highest level that you can get in British Horse Society. So he brings instructors over from the British Horse Society, and we had certifications there. So I am certified through level 3 and have my trainer certification.
Cool.
Nice.
So then you are competing, and what all did you compete in when you were in college?
So when I was in college, I competed at first level at the college level. And then at that same time, I was training my Clydesdale Thoroughbred. So I first purchased him from California. And my mom, I was still doing eventing at the time. And my mom had called this lady from California and was like, I really like this horse. What do you think about him? And I'm like, yeah, we're not buying a horse from California. We live in Pennsylvania. I can't even go try it, And I'm listening to my mom on the phone, and she's like, well, if I offer you this price, will you take him right now? And I'm like, are you nuts? Buying a 2-year-old in California. And so my mom was like, sold. And he came off the trailer, and he had this giant head and this little bitty skinny body. And I thought, oh my gosh, what have we bought? And he turned out to be so awesome. He did not like to jump. at all. But he's the horse that I felt passage for the first time, and he let me make so many mistakes in my training. And he just was so good about it. He just doesn't do anything wrong, and that horse can do 1 tempies, he can do 2s and 3s. He just taught me so much. He's actually at the college that I graduated from teaching students right now, and
he's a teacher.
Yeah, they love him there, because it ended up when I was riding him and training him to Prix St George, which was like a dream of mine, to wear my tails for the first time, and I wore a top hat because that's when we all weren't wearing helmets at FEI level yet. But the reality was he was a Clydesdale thoroughbred, so he was never really going to be super competitive with the big warm bloods. So I bought after I got married, I bought a 3-month-old Oldenburg mare who was more bred for dressage, and then I offered them to my college, and they've had him for 6 years now.
Oh, how nice. Yeah. Wow.
So you married your college sweetheart.
I did.
And how did that, what were you planning on doing, and then how did your life change?
So when I met my husband, the sweet man, I was taking 19 credits. I was playing college volleyball at the time, and I was cleaning about 20 stalls a day to pay for my horse. And then I was still riding in college. And so when I first met him, I was like, look, the time I have for you is at the barn. That's all I have, because I don't have any extra time. So he came and he learned to clean stalls, and he learned to tack up horses, and he learned to clean tack, and he did it like no problem. That was fine. So I was like, I think this kid might be a keeper. So, and I know a lot of my friends that I graduated college with, they went off to be working students. And so they had kind of like a different path. And I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I knew I always wanted to be a mom. That was something that I always had wanted to be. And so I wasn't really sure where life was going to take me when I left college.
Yeah.
Like when I worked for that Grand Prix rider, he had always said, what are your goals? Like, what do you want to do? And one of my goals was always to take a horse from start to finish. So having that opportunity to buy a 3-month-old horse and start her from the ground up and do all of that stuff myself. And right now we're working on 3rd level movements, which is adding the flying lead change in, has been really rewarding to be able to do that. My hope is that she'll be a Grand Prix mare. Yeah. We'll see.
Exciting.
If she does
so
that.
When you're in school, because, putting Gretchen through college, we learned a lot. Did you have the ability, to help other kids who are going through this? Did you have the ability to have a job, or, what did that look like? And what tips do you have for kids who are going to school for something like this?
So, one thing I thought our college was really, really great at was we had to do internships in the equine industry, and they really encouraged you to do different internships, within different aspects of the equine industry, to kind of feel what you wanted to do. And they could absolutely be paid jobs. So I did that, but I also taught what I call up-down lessons, really beginner kid lessons, all through college pretty much, at a farm that was right down the road from where I kept my horse at. And so that helped me a lot with having a job. But I think that the horse industry is a really, really hard industry to be in anyway. It takes a lot of work. And so realizing that you're always working and you're always on call, and the horses don't just stop eating because it's Christmas or New Year's or your birthday. They always need something, is really important, if you want to be in this industry. And if you don't, and if that's not the lifestyle you want, there are lots of other jobs to take. When I before we moved out here, I worked at Hauseman Dressage, which was an amazing opportunity, and for a while I was the groom, and then a barn manager for a little while, and then the assistant breeding manager there for a little while. But I worked from 7 to 4 because I had kids that I had to go pick up from school. And so that was really the lifestyle that I needed at the time. And so it still allowed me to fulfill my horse passion, and so much learning that I got to do there, all the amazing clinicians that come in. But then still having a life outside of horses.
Yeah.
Right.
Was it hard to find that balance after you had grown up with this, so intense being with the horses all the time and then finding the balance to family.
Yes, and it's still hard because now I'm running my own business, and I have, I'm running my own farm and training business out of Centerline Farms in Swanton. And so I have 5 horses in training there that I take care of, and so I have to be there for morning chores, and they have to be ridden 5 days a week, and so even now it's really hard at times for me to find that balance of, my kids are little, they're 6, 4, and 2.
Oh, wow.
So finding that balance can be really, really difficult for me at times. I'm really fortunate that I have a really supportive husband and a supportive family, and the kids will come and they sweep, and they'll take in some of the horses that are calmer, and they'll groom horses and stuff. So, and my daughter loves to clean tack.
That's a really great thing to have. Do any of your kids have the same passion that you do for the horses, do you think?
I'm not sure yet. So I thought Zoe, my oldest, might, but she got thrown off pretty good when she was about 3. And ever since then, she's a little nervous, which I'm okay about, actually. When she got thrown off, I was right there, and my trainer instinct kicked in first to go like, oh, you did so great and you held on for so long. And then when she went out of the arena, I lost it and, became a puddling tear of messes.
Sure.
And so in that moment, I was like, I'm really okay if she doesn't want to ride. Like, that might be okay with me.
Yeah.
It changes. We had the same thing too, and I think you go through seasons of, where you kind of have some times where maybe you take a step back and let it, just sit for a while until they find that passion again. So,
and not everybody in the family ends up, doing the same thing that you have the passion for. I mean, they might be passionate about it, but they may not do all of it too. So, but they still, I think, being out in the barn, like you said, doing the chores, they learn to respect it. And I think they also I think children learn a lot from that in the way that, there are jobs to do and they can be done and not just sitting in the house, maybe. And
I mean, we were in the barn all the time. Like, I had a really bad fall when I was in 3rd grade, and that's when I was kind of like, okay, I'm not.
That's enough, yeah.
I'm not about this. Like, this is great. I love being around the horses, but I don't think riding's my thing, and I eventually found my passions. But, like, we were over there all the time. My sister was up in the hay bales playing with the cats, and, we really grew up in the barn.
And I saw the videos on the internet, and I was like, it's not for me.
You don't know yet, though.
It
could be for you.
I have been on a horse.
You're going to ride this. Yes, you're going to ride.
I would totally be okay with
this spring
riding a horse.
Okay. We'll get you on the horse, Trevor.
So you graduated college, and then where did you go after that?
So when I graduated college, I got married 2 weeks later.
Okay.
And then my husband had already had a job in Maryland, so we lived in Delaware at the time. And my first job was at Dover Saddlery. That's what I first did afterwards. And that was really fun, like learning the retail aspect of it.
Yeah.
So that was really nice. And then I got a job at Maryland Therapeutic Riding. And that was about an hour and a half drive for me. But it was one of the most amazing jobs I've ever had. I mean, like, you witness so many miracles on a daily basis happening there. It was, I think I cried more at that job than I've, like, any other place. And so that was really awesome. And so I was the equine director there for a little while. And so basically I, was in charge of all the horses, and then I rode all the horses on a regular basis. We found that it really changed the horses, their overall attitudes, because they're working with kids that aren't symmetrical. Their muscles aren't symmetrical. Things are happening, it's different, things like that. And so then the horses would tend to get asymmetrical. And then so if they were having a job and really working their bodies properly, like in dressage, then their overall health tended to be happier. They tended to, help our riders benefit a lot more. So that was really my focus when I was there. And then after that job, I decided that we're going to start having a family, and an hour and a half drive was not feasible, having a family at the same time. So I was fortunate enough that Hassler Dressage was looking for like a temporary spot while one of their people at the time was having knee surgery. And so Suzanne Hassler had called me, and she was like, do you want this position? And I was like, yes, I do. Absolutely. So I worked there. I think I was 5 months pregnant when I started working there. And I worked there up until the day I had Zoe. And then I worked there for 2 years, just over 2 years, I think. And then we moved to the East Coast. Or to the Midwest. To Ohio.
So where in all of this did you get into the circuit of, the St. George? I want to say it right.
Prix St George?
Yeah, Prix St George. Where did that all fit in?
I think I started doing Prix St George with Colton when I was a sophomore in college. Yeah, either a sophomore or junior in college, because I know that one of my last shows on him was after JD and I were married already. So I rode him at Prix St George for a while. When I started working with that Grand Prix dressage rider, we kind of figured out that, the lower levels, when you have more elastic gaits, you tend to score higher because that's kind of what it's based on. And then we call it like the tricks. As you go up the levels, you get more and more tricks. And he was really good at the tricks, not so great at like the elastic movements because he just wasn't built that way to have these big movements. Mm-hmm. And so I showed him at 3rd level, I think twice. And then we skipped 4th level and just went to Prix St George.
Oh, wow.
How exciting. Really exciting.
And so is that something like that you do, is that part of the curriculum, or is that just something that you did on your own during the summers, or how do you fit that into your schedule?
So I still rode my horse every day during college, and still work, and that's when I worked for the Grand Prix rider all through college too. So I did both of those things at the same time.
So you were giving lessons.
Yeah.
You were collegiate athlete playing volleyball. You were captain of your dressage team. You were riding every single day and taking 19 credit hours.
I was going to say she's definitely not an overachiever in any way, shape, or form. Yes.
So I only played volleyball my freshman year of college, because I realized after my freshman year, like I wasn't going to go on to be some amazing volleyball player and anything like that. So I was like, I need to give somewhere. And so that was where I gave. I still play volleyball now for our church league, which I really enjoy. But yeah, so I only did volleyball for 1 year, but then I did
everything else. Yeah, everything filled in.
Everything in between and more. Yes.
Yeah. I look back now and I think, I don't know how I did that stuff. Like, I don't know how I did all that.
Do you think you'll expect the same thing from your kids?
I always tell my kids that they never have to be the best, but they have to be the best version of themselves. Mm-hmm. So, I never expect my kids to be the best. If Zoe really likes gymnastics, so I never expect her to be like, an Olympian gymnastics. But if she wants to be that, that's great. Mm-hmm. But I expect her to try her best. I expect them to do their best in whatever they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then you came here, and you were in Perrysburg, and you hadn't started your business yet.
No.
Okay.
So when we first moved here, I was pregnant with our middle son, Sammy, and I was on bed rest for 27 weeks. And it just so happened that we didn't find a replacement for me at Hassler Dressage. So they allowed me to continue to do my job when I moved here, because it was, it's a lot of on the phone. Being a breeding assistant manager is a lot of on the phone, a lot of computer work, things like that. So they allowed me to keep doing my job remotely, which was such a blessing. So nice. So, I got to do that, and then when that ended, then the breeding manager at Hassler Dressage, when I was there before, he and I got together, and we started our own breeding business called Sport Horse Legacy, because Hassler Dressage was getting out of the breeding business. So we took on all the stallions that we had already represented and just kept representing those same exact stallions.
Okay.
And so we did that for 2 years, and then when that ended, then I started my business, because I was like, what am I going to do for extra income? Like, I don't know what to do. And my husband was like, why don't you just teach? I was like, nobody wants to take lessons from me. Like, and he was like, yes, they do. You're great at this. So he was my big push advocate into doing that. And I joined the local dressage club, the Great Lakes Dressage Club. Mm-hmm. And that's really how I got most of my clients starting out.
Nice.
So did you have a horse with you the whole time, like your own horse?
Yes.
You've always had your own horse.
Yes.
Whether you did you ever board it, or did you?
Yeah. So when we moved here, because I didn't have I just had the job from Hassler's, I cleaned stalls 4 days a week with my 2 kids to pay for board. So the first barn I was at, I was cleaning 18 stalls. The second barn I was at, I think I was up to 21 4 days a week.
Wow. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I realized I enjoyed teaching lessons way more, and I made more money teaching lessons than I did
Right.
cleaning
Clean
stalls.
Yeah. So what horse do you currently have then? What's your horse that you
So
currently have?
my mare that I currently have, she'll be 9 this year, and she's an Oldenburg mare. Her name is Sylvain, just like the song. She's very opinionated, and she's a little sassy, and I love her. She's like my heart horse. So
And she's the one that you trained from the ground up.
yes, yep. So I did all the starting work with her, which was really fun and very eye-opening in a lot of ways and they're all so different, and
Yeah.
I have horses in training now, and every one of them's different. All their personalities are different, how they learn is different, which is really keeps it so interesting.
So what level do you want to take her to? Do you want to go all the way, or?
Yeah, that's my goal. So this year I'm hoping that we'll come out 3rd level. We're just finishing up our flying lead change.
Mhm.
And then I'm hoping that she'll be a Grand Prix horse. We'll see.
Wow.
Yeah.
It takes a ton of strength and, a lot of support, and not every horse gets there because it just doesn't, it's like
Yeah.
every person being a professional athlete, that doesn't work that way. So we'll see.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go back to college really quick.
Okay.
Because there's a part that I don't think we talked about. You competed in nationals.
Yes.
How was that?
So my senior year, we competed at nationals my sophomore, junior, and senior year. So my sophomore year and my junior year, we just went as a team. My senior year, my entire team went as the team, and then we all also competed as individuals, which was like super awesome. That was so much fun. So I ended up 6th that year in nationals, which I was happy with.
Yeah.
But it's definitely it's intense because you get 10 minutes, and it's always like the luck of the draw. If you pick the right horse that is the nicest horse out of all 3 groups or whatever. But it makes it a lot of fun
Yeah.
and really interesting.
What was your favorite, if you had to pick one thing, your favorite part of your college experience?
My favorite part of my college experience would probably be meeting my husband.
Aw, that's so sweet.
So go ahead.
How did you meet him, being that you were so busy? It didn't sound like he was in the barn. And
No.
Okay.
So he was in the dorm next to me in the agriculture. It was we called it the agricultural dorm because that's where most of the agricultural kids were at. So our college used to be based as an agricultural school. So we have people that do pigs and sheep and cows and everything you can think of. So he lived over there because he was in the agricultural fraternity at the time.
Okay.
And so, I was always super busy, but my friends in my dorm were like, you have to come over and hang out with us. You have to come over and hang out with us. And actually, my friend that was dating another guy at the time, she was like, you have to meet this guy because I think he's perfect for you. And I was like, if you think you're going to set me on a blind date on my freshman year in college, you are crazy.
Your freshman year.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
but we ended up meeting on our own, one night. And then he asked me to go country line dancing the next weekend, and so we went line dancing, and
That was
pretty much
it.
it.
That's
That
all
was it.
she wrote.
What does he do? Because you said he was in ag. Is he still?
Yeah, so he is an agronomy research manager, so he farms.
Okay.
Love that.
Now, does he ride too? Did you get him to start riding?
He does not ride. He has sat on my old horse Colton a couple of times, but he does not ride. So he's just super supportive.
Yeah.
And it's nice. We just went down to a trainer in South Carolina who I really, really like. And he went with me. So he and I went, just the two of us, for 10 days to South Carolina. Oh, wow. And his mom watched the kids, which was so nice. And he watched and sat and watched lessons, and he was like, you do this, and then she does that, and and so like he was able to help me a little bit in that sense. And it's nice because I hadn't taken a lesson in a very long time until I started doing a couple clinics this year. And so it's nice that like he can come with me and see that kind of stuff, because then he can come to the barn and he can say, doesn't look like it did in South Carolina, or
another
like
set of eyes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how often do you where do you put that on the priority list now of you taking lessons, instead of just you doing the training all yourself?
So it hasn't been a priority for me, which is really bad, because everybody needs a set of eyes. What you feel and what is actually coming off of the horse, like what people see, can be two very different things. So to me, that's my really, I love training horses, and the more horses you ride, the better rider you are. And the more diverse horses you ride, the better rider you are. So I love training, but I really have to make sure that I'm always learning and always getting better, so that I can continue to be better for my clients and better for my other horses. So I'm going to make that more of a priority for myself this year. That's my goal.
New Year's resolution.
Yeah. Because I have these aspirations for myself and for my horse, and so I definitely need help getting there.
Nice.
So with
Very
the
nice.
training that you're doing right now, is this something that you are training other people's horses? You're training them to ride their horses, or both?
Both. So I do give lessons throughout the area. I have clients in Bowling Green, and I have clients in Grand Rapids, and I have clients in Toledo, and I have clients in Swanton. But then I also have horses that come in for training. So either they're wanting the horses to learn something, or they're wanting to just be in more of an intense training program. So I have one client in training right now that she actually takes 3 lessons a week, and that's half training. So she takes the lessons because she wants to be in that kind of intense environment for right now, which is great. So it kind of leaves it open. Some people just send their horses, and I ride them and train them, and then they go home, and that's okay too.
So are your clients all different ages, or do you mainly see that, there's an age group that you work with, or are they all different ages?
So it kind of depends. A lot of younger kids want to jump, right? Because that's the really fun stuff. I mean, that's fun, right? I was that way too, so it's okay.
I was too.
Yeah. So I don't get very many kids that are just dressage. I've had a few. So mostly it's older clients.
So what would you tell someone that is what are your tips for people that are just starting dressage or want to start dressage?
Is to get a good trainer. Because I really, really feel like, dressage is about training your horse to use their body properly. And the horse can't use its body properly if you're not using your body properly. And you can't do that on your own. You really need a good trainer, and you need to be in a good training program in order to build the strength and the core muscles that helps to balance your horse and to help to train it to sit properly and to use itself correctly.
Go ahead.
Is that something that you feel like you just over time your body adjusts to that? You're training your body to do that while you're on the horse, or are there actual exercises that you do that are for this off of the horse?
So I used to just think it was just lots of riding, and it is lots of time in the saddle, tons of time in the saddle. But in order to be stronger for my horse, I need to be stronger too. So there are I haven't recently, in the past week, because we've had sick kids at my house, but I get up and normally do some sort of kind of Pilates exercise or something like that. For a while last year, I was working with a personal trainer and doing strength training because I had torn my ACL.
Okay.
So I needed that help in getting back into shape. But I feel like it's really important we expect our horses to be these big muscular things and to do all these fancy tricks and stuff. But it's important for us to be in shape too, because how can you expect your horse to go through a 5-minute dressage test if you can't have that same kind of ability to do that too?
So what would you tell someone that isn't doing dressage but like wants to apply some of those like techniques to their riding?
So I really feel like dressage is the basis for the majority of riding disciplines. And I've been at Western barns around here, and they'll say like, some of the people that apply dressage basics to their Western riding are some of the best horses that come out of those programs, because it's about balance and using your horse properly. And the same thing, you have to, like my trainer used to always tell us that jumping is just flat work over jumps. That's it. So if you're not riding good flat work and learning how to use your core to do a half halt before a fence, then you're going to miss your distances, or you're not going to be able to lengthen a stride or shorten a stride for a jump. So, so I think flat work's super important for all the horses. You can't jump all the time or, do all of that stuff all the time. So.
And do you feel like it was important that, like, as you were growing up with horses, you were just like in the barn, working in the barn, trying to see as much, like see other people riding? You weren't necessarily like taking all those lessons, but you were there. Do you feel like that's important for younger people to be doing as well?
Yeah, I think, it's not just about riding, it's a relationship with your horse. And so spending the time in the barn and grooming your horse and learning to tack up and learning to take care of it. I mean, they're living animals, right? Like, they get sick and they get cuts and they get hurt and things like that. And you have to learn how to take care of them. And so spending as much time in the barn as you can and learning from other people. I always say that you can learn something from every single trainer, and so I encourage my riders, go take a clinic, go audit, because you can learn something by watching. You can learn something by listening to somebody else. So I think spending time in the barn and learning about your horse and how to take care of it, and then watching other people ride is super important.
Do you feel that with your horses, with like warm bloods versus, say, a thoroughbred, or other horses that you're looking for a specific attitude for a good dressage horse? Or I know you're talking about elasticity, and do they, what do they have the tendency to be able to do, but do you feel the attitude also has?
Yeah. So a good work ethic is always important, right? Because you're asking these huge animals to do all these things for you. So, and some people, it depends on the person. Some people like horses a little bit hotter, and you can definitely look for that in breeding. Mm-hmm. Some people like things a little bit calmer, and that's okay. Everybody has their own different ride, and I think it's important when you're looking for a horse that you look for a horse that you enjoy riding, that's your ride, because that's going to be the best combination for the two. My mare Sylvain, when I bought her at 3 months, you don't really know what her attitude is like, and she can be pretty sassy. Which isn't always my pick. I prefer she kind of tone that down a little. But I also think that when that trust between her and I, she really trusts me, and I really trust her. So I know when I can push in those moments and when I can't. Yeah. And I think that's really important. So, and when we break through those moments where she's like really nervous or she's very unsure about how to do something, she'll allow me to ride her through those moments now. And then she gives me 110%, because of that. So there's good parts and bad parts to all their attitudes. Yeah.
Mares or geldings for dressage?
I think it doesn't matter either way. People have always said that like geldings, you can, like ride a little differently because they don't hold a grudge so much. And sometimes you can see in a mare that they're like, yesterday when you told me that I needed to do something, they kind of like hold that a little bit. But I think it doesn't matter either way.
And breed-wise, do you feel that there's a difference or not so much?
Like for dressage wise. Mm-hmm. So I definitely think that there are breeds that are more that are set up more to succeed at dressage. That doesn't mean that there can't be horses that can't improve and can't do very high levels of dressage that you're unexpected, because that happens. So I think with good training, you can take any horse as far as you want.
Nice.
I'm sorry, did you say breeds or braids?
Breeds.
I heard the word braids.
Braids.
I was like, yeah, tell me, how should you braid your horse's hair?
So So we do button braids for shows.
Let's talk about braids next. Button braids. There you go.
So having your children out in the barn, and growing up in probably a different world than what we grew up in, with all the electronics that they have now and the ability to be online all the time, what do you feel like is really important for your kids to either have that balance, or what you want them to get out of being in the barn? Like, what do you feel like it helps with your kids?
I want my kids to know, I mean, don't get me wrong, my kids, definitely watch my phone at times when I'm teaching a lesson and they're with me and I'm like, shh, you have to be quiet because I'm teaching. But I want them to realize that there are things that are more important than yourself at times, and that it's our job to take care of these animals and to take care of other people. And so sometimes you have to sacrifice. You sacrifice going out or doing other things because the horse is sick, or like we eat dinner at a different time now because I have to do evening chores, and that's just how it goes. Like, I want them to learn that there are responsibilities, and that you have to take those seriously because there are living animals. And we have dogs at home, too, so our kids get that part of it too at times. I just want them to realize that there are other things besides themselves, that are important.
How did you start your kids out in the barn and like teaching them to respect the animals? And
So Zoe's always been really, really good she's always been a really good listener. So she was pretty easy starting out in the barn. Sammy, my middle, because he was so little. So when at first I was doing stalls and riding and stuff, he was actually just in I had a little portable swing that I took with me, and he swang while I did stalls. And then when he started crawling and walking, I have this big playpen thing that I put him in, so that made me feel safe. I dumped a bunch of toys in there, and I'd put peanut butter crackers in there. I'm like, you have food, toys, you're good. There you are. You're good for a little while. So but then I'd take that with me to my lessons too, like when I had the kids. And I have a picture of an indoor, and the playpen is right at the entrance of the indoor, and I'm teaching, and then the horse is leaning over and looking at my kids, and Zoe's feeding him
sweet.
Cheerios.
Sweet.
Man. So from there you started getting them to pick stalls with you and grooming, and started riding at 3.
Yeah, so Zoe started riding when she was really little, and she loved it, but then she had a fall, and so she got a little nervous, but she still likes to get on horses, and both my boys love to get on. I always like them to have a small, healthy fear of the horse, right? Because they're big animals and they can hurt them, not even knowingly, just, stepping on them by accident or whatever. And, my kids' feet are so little that, they'll break easy and stuff. So I like them to have a little bit of fear of their horses, and they need to have a good respect for them. There are animals. And so, but they're pretty good about I'll say, we're bringing in the horses now. You guys have to go to the other end of the barn, and they'll all move. And so they're pretty good about it.
Yeah. Was there anything else?
Not that I can think of right now.
Okay. How can people find you? Are you on Facebook? Are you on Instagram?
I am on Facebook, yeah. So my business is called Rock Solid Dressage, and I have a Facebook page, and then,
Okay, cool. Well, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll enter our segment, Canter Banter.
Do you love horses and live the equestrian lifestyle? Be sure to check out our brand new blog at www.yourhorsefarm.com. We publish 3 posts per week and feature a free printable equine checklist every month. Yourhorsefarm.com is a great equine online resource, so be sure to share with all the horse lovers in your life. And remember, laugh much and ride often. Our next segment, Canter Banter, is brought to you by RAMM Horse Fencing and Stalls, the one-stop shop for your horse farm. RAMM is family-owned and operated and has been in business for over 30 years. We welcome you to call in and speak with an expert about your next project today at 866-653-8984. Again, that's 866-653-8984.
And we're back. On this segment of Canter Banter, we're going to be talking about family businesses. So both of you my grandma and you, Nicole, have started a business from absolutely nothing. So talk a little bit about that.
Go ahead, Nicole.
So, like when I started my training business, I was a little scary. The good thing was I really didn't have any overhead when I first started my training business. Like I had already had a horse and things like that. So like I wasn't really having to like cover a lot of expenses. So that was like a good peace of mind for me to start out. But it has grown into something a lot more than I ever imagined. And I'm really grateful that I get to pass on my passion of riding to people, and to see like their dreams come to life is exactly why I do what I do. To see the look on their face when they get that, great canter transition, or that first feeling of like true throughness in their hands and their seat. That is totally the best moment. Yeah.
What about you?
Well, we just started slow, and so with the company, and then grew. I think the biggest thing was like for us, we have, as we do like the equestrian products and that type of thing. So our biggest thing was just, the warehousing, the purchasing, that type of thing, and making sure that we had the products that our customers were looking for, and then being able to be in that position of having horses and knowing how the horses, how the products withstood with the horses, then made such a big difference. So it helped a lot. But I think the growing pains sometimes are difficult. Yeah. At times you go along and then all of a sudden you hit kind of a hump or a growing pain, and then you have to get beyond that. Mm-hmm. So have you done that as well too, Nicole?
So I guess I'm kind of in that spot right now, because now, like I'm running my business out of the farm at Centerline Farms, and just having to add the extra time in. It's been awesome that I can take in training horses, which has been really, really nice. And I love the facility there. And the owners of the barn are so generous. But it is different for me, it adds a lot more time. And then I've had to learn how to balance my lesson students that want lessons for me to still travel, because that now I'm traveling outside of my own barn to do lessons for people, which is time away from my barn that I need to do things there, and other horses that I could be riding at my barn. And then it's taking away even more time from my family and my kids. So that's kind of been a hard transition.
It is. I think when you have children and you're trying to run the business, it's one of those things that your husband's so supportive, which is wonderful, mm-hmm. and that helps a lot. But you hit certain times with different ages with your children in school, mm-hmm. where you kind of hit those times. And always seems like we were able to work through it, but sometimes you're really scratching your head trying to figure out, how do we go next? Yeah. What's the next step to continue on? So I think can be a bit of a challenge at times.
Yeah. Well, we hope you enjoyed listening to our podcast and encourage you to share with all your equestrian family and friends. You can tune into Late Night Riders podcast show every Friday night. Each episode will be uploaded exclusively on YouTube, where you can subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with our latest shows. Do you have a topic you'd like us to discuss? We want to hear from you. You can email us at podcast@rammfence.com, or feel free to leave a comment below. Thank you again for listening.